Right, we're recording.
This is the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Environment taking place on Monday, the 22nd of September 2025. I'm Councillor Richard Sylvester, the Executive Cabinet Member, and I'd like to welcome councillors and officers of Bolton Council to this meeting and to members of the public if you're watching the recorded version on the Bolton Council YouTube channel. Item number 1 on the agenda is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet Member decisions. This report was sent out by email prior to this meeting. Looking at the monitoring report, I see that 3 previous decisions which I've made can be removed for the next meeting, and that's the decision on the 16th of June 2025, the re-procurement of the bulky waste contract, and this contractor has now been appointed and the contract begins this month in September. In fact, it's already begun, and I want to thank my head of service, Laurie Hunter, for her work on that new service. Also, the decision I made again on the 16th of June 2025, increasing the establishment within the Environmental Education and Enforcement Unit, and a recruitment process has taken place, and the service has offered the role to an individual who has accepted the position of an Environmental Education and Enforcement Officer. So that's now complete. And then finally, the local nature recovery strategy item from the 28th of July 2025. This was approved by myself. Notification of this was sent to the Greater Manchester Mayor at GMCA, and it's now been adopted by the GMCA. So that item is also complete. So those 3 items can be removed from the next monitoring report. Any members on the call, any questions or comments on the monitoring report at all? No? So we'll move on then to item number 2. And this is a report on the Heaton Cemetery extension, 3rd stage works. And which officer is taking us through this report? It's our Assistant Director, Gary Parker. So over to yourself, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors and colleagues. This is regarding report reference 45533, the formal title being Heaton Cemetery Extension, 3rd stage works, increase in plot numbers. This report seeks approval for the stage 3 works, which will unlock 3,000 grave plots in the Heaton Cemetery Muslim side of the cemetery at Heaton. It'll also unlock access for paths, vehicle routes, and new tree planting. It might help if I share screen and share an image of what I'm talking about. Would that be useful to people?
Yes, yeah, please do, Gary. That'd be very good.
Okay. Let me know when that's on screen.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, so phase 1 and 2 of the work, this being phase 1, this being phase 2, was opened in 2012 after full planning permission was sought for the entire site. And this has provided 1,600 burial plots in that part of the cemetery. But with a declining trend in repatriation and, of course, COVID hitting us quite hard in 2020, that has filled rather quickly. So we need to extend, and we need to extend into phase 3. And the plan has always been to extend into this area here, which we've kept open. We have an interim plot that we're using, which is this in between the tree line here, which has always been part of the plan, but that's currently being used. and that's filling rather quickly. So we need to expand into this area here, which we're referring to phase 3 for the purpose of this report. We're looking to have this sort of design intended for in sort of the third quarter of 2025, with work commencing late 2025, early 26. As I mentioned earlier, planning consent for that area has already been approved. Funding for this is from Capital Project Works. It was set aside as £500,000. With inflation, that's been uplifted to £550,000 and will form part of the capital programme. BCOM have been consulted about extending this and are agreeable to it, and a more formal and wider consultation exercise was undertaken for the entire plot, where full community consultation took place. So if I just take that off screen and look at the recommendations to this report, the recommendations are as follows. So the recommendations are that we note the estimated costs for bringing forward the next phase of grave plots of Heaton Cemetery extension. Note the projected timescales for delivery of the work ready for full access to new burials during 25-26. Note the previous reports and development of the scheme thus far. Approve the project funding proposals as set out in this report, and approve commencement of this next phase of the project. Authorise the Director of Place, in consultation with the Exec Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Environmental Services, to progress any procurement of proposed commercial contracts as required to complete this work. Authorise the Borough Solicitor to conclude any legal arrangements, and authorise Borough Treasurer to complete the necessary financial formalities. There is a slight amendment in the report that I've got that you've got slightly differently, and it talks about this requirement being completed in mid-2025. That's been amended because clearly we're past that point, so apologies for that. But that's been pushed back, as I've mentioned, verbally, and in the report that I've got in front of me, which will be taken forward, that is to be late 2025 delivery in early 2026. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Gary from members on the call? Any comments? We'll go over to Councillor Hilary Fairclough first of all.
You're on mute, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm here now. Well, just probably a comment and a question. The question really is, how many plots are available on the non-Muslim side? Have we got plenty of space available?
I don't have a number for you to hand. I can get one for you, but we're not concerned about capacity on the non-Muslim side.
Right, okay. The only other the comment really was how you balance this news, because obviously the Muslim cemetery is very well kept, and I know that that's done mainly by I think BCOM and probably family members, and obviously it's quite new in as much as our cemeteries clearly have graves that can be there for 100 years or more. But we do get a lot of complaints about the cemeteries, because I accept it will be a lot more difficult to keep them in a state that people appreciate. So I'm just wondering how you handle this, because what you've got now is that you've got the Muslim side of the cemetery with lovely paths and nice screening and greenery. And unfortunately, that isn't the case necessarily with the cemeteries that I am involved with. As I say, I can understand to a great extent why that is, but obviously residents don't. They will just see it that their cemeteries are sort of being neglected. So I'm just wondering how you're going to handle that sort of, because this obviously will go out and become in public knowledge.
In the budget of 2025-26, which was approved, there was an investment of £350,000, and that investment allowed the head of environmental assets to go out and invest and recruit a team of 10 individuals, one team leader, and a number of operatives to maintain those sites. So we have, for the first time, a dedicated operational team in those sites all year round. It's not seasonal, and you'll have seen, and I know we've had contact about it already, that they are in the area on a 4-weekly rotating cycle, going through those areas. In the non-growing season, the idea is to trim back and maintain those sites even further. During the growing seasons, it had regular work. There were complaints about the sites in 2024-25, but certainly we've had no contact of that nature in 2025-26, because the condition of those areas has been significantly improved.
Well, can I just say that isn't quite right, because I've had a number of complaints that I've passed on. I will absolutely accept that they are improvements. And I don't know the full number of cemeteries that we actually have, but clearly 350,000 is a good number, good amount. But that's being split amongst 5-6 cemeteries. I don't know the exact amount, as opposed to 500,000 being spent on one cemetery. And I absolutely understand the reason for it. I've not got a problem with it. I just feel that it's the handling of it, because I do get complaints quite often about our cemeteries. As I say, some things are almost beyond our control. A 100-year-old grave with a badly maintained plot. There is reason for that. Obviously, the families are not there to maintain it, and I just do think that the general public just see it as being that they're not getting their fair share. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't really matter. It's the perception that I'm really mentioning. So
can I be clear that the £500,000 investment is in the infrastructure of that part of the cemetery? The £350,000 is a borough-wide investment in staffing. It's a revenue investment, and it's 10 members of staff who go around to all cemeteries and maintain them and get them looking as best we can with that resource. And it's not limited to one area. It's all cemeteries on a rotation basis in the growing and non-growing season.
I absolutely understand that. I won't labour the point, but the infrastructure, you're talking about paths and such like, and I know when I visit cemeteries in my area, their paths are not brilliant by any stretch. So that's what I'm saying is it's the same thing. I'm not saying that you're not doing as good a job as you can. I'm just pointing out that is the perception, and it was how you were going to handle it, really. I'll finish there. I won't go back again.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, you've said your piece there, Councillor Fairclough. We'll go over to Councillor Ali.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I just wanted to say, obviously, I welcome this extension.
Yes.
It's much needed. Obviously, I'm born and bred here. My kids are born and bred here.
Sure.
And we know that the older cemetery, which has got some dilapidated graves and so forth, as I'm on about the older Muslim cemetery as well. Obviously, as time goes on, and if those areas aren't maintained, they will. But as a community, we've come forward, we've developed volunteers and family members as well. Like I'm going next Sunday with some volunteers to sort out my mum and dad's grave. I don't think we should be kind of punished for keeping our cemeteries in good condition. It's quite divisive talk, that, and how we're going to portray it, and all this about one community views that as unfair, and so I don't think the public of Bolton have got that perception. I think the public of Bolton have been told, in the last budget, as you said, Councillor Sylvester, that we've got investment into a new team of people, officers who'll go around and maintain all the cemeteries equally. And I just think this type of talk is quite divisive, because it's not them and us. This is just the public of Bolton, and we're made up of, Hindus, Christians, non-religious, and we're just catering for the needs of our communities. And I don't think it's, when you look at the whole overall budget of Bolton, to provide 500, 550k for this land to expand a much needed. I mean, where else are we going to bury people if we don't create a space? Because obviously, COVID and such, as the officer said, they're full now, the cemetery, and we need to expand into that area. And it's a good investment because for pound investment, our communities are also taking on the responsibility through volunteers and families to look after that area. You know, it's not like an investment is put in and then Bolton Council have to spend so much more money carrying on the maintenance of that. No, it's the amount that's going to go in to provide that place, and then we've got volunteers and BCom and so forth that'll maintain and look after it. So I don't think this kind of device is, especially in today's political climate and with the far right, you know, extreme marches we saw, we don't need this kind of language, to be honest. That's my say.
Well, thank you very much for that, Councillor Ali. It's always been a long-term plan for the cemetery, the section of the cemetery to be expanded over a period of time as each of these parts of these sections fill up. So I think you were on the planning committee, Councillor Fairclough, back in 2005-6, but certainly your colleagues were, and it went through planning and it has planning permission. It's always been the long-term plan of the council to do this. So I'm following what has been agreed previously. I don't have any problem in the slightest. It is very well kept, but because of the 4 years of austerity under your administration, you were deputy leader at the time, Councillor Fairclough. Cemeteries got into a complete and utter mess, and that's why this administration, in the budget in February, invested an extra 350,000 into cemeteries, and that's why on the 16th of June, and it's on the monitoring report, that's why I agreed and approved a recruitment process for 10 operatives to go around the borough, tidying up all of the cemeteries, all of the neglect which took place, which built up under the previous Conservative administration. So for you to criticise, I am very disappointed, I have to say, but like I said, you said your piece. I've said my piece as well, but I'm happy to approve this report. Do you want to come back? Because you have indicated again, Councillor Fairclough.
Well, I would have liked to have come back. I don't particularly wanted to get into an argument. I think when I first started, I said that I accepted fully that the Muslim cemeteries were very well kept and they were kept not by the council. So I can't quite understand where my divisive comments are coming. What I did say was what I felt a number of people's perception would be. And really what I was saying was how you were going to handle that rather than it become divisive. I'm not disappointed and certainly not surprised that suddenly, Richard, you've decided that you're going to blame it all on our 4 years. God, what we did achieve in that 4 years. Clearly, you don't mention the 40 years previously. And I just think you just spoil things because you just can't let it go. I was trying to be, believe it or not, relatively helpful. Clearly, I failed in that.
Well, you did.
I don't think you made it any better. Thank you.
You did fail, unfortunately.
Mm.
So I am going to take a decision on this now, and I am going to agree to recommendations 1, 2, and 3. To note recommendations 1, 2, and 3. I am going to approve recommendation 4, and I am going to authorise recommendations 5, 6, and 7 on the front of the report. So all of those are noted, approved, and authorised for that Heaton Cemetery Extension 3rd stage works. So then we'll go, okay, and so then we'll go to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the cleansing of unadopted roads. So is it yourself again, Gary, or is it Laurie who's going to take us through this report?
Laurie's going to talk us through his report,
Yeah,
Chair.
brilliant. So it's our head of service, Laurie Hunter, who'll take us through this report.
Thank you, Chair. The title of this report is to permanently put in place staffing resources for fly tip removal on unadopted roads. So from around this time last year, we started a trial whilst the council's not directly responsible for unadopted roads. There is no necessary liability or responsibility for keeping those spaces maintained. So they've been neglected for quite a number of years. What we trialed from, as I say, sort of around summer, autumn last year was 2 staff and a vehicle to make their way around the borough in a very slow fashion, but still try to kind of update the upkeep of these unadopted roads, improve access, improve the living standard for residents in those areas. That trial has gone well. What we're seeing essentially is the team of 2 individuals and 1 vehicle. We divide the borough into north, south and west. For a month, they're in the north and they've got maps of all the unadopted roads and they make their way through those across that month. The next month they'll move to the west and the following month they'll move to the south. So it's a very slow process, but they are over a period of time trying to tackle unadopted roads and make them a little bit more pleasant for the communities. So it includes using, so collecting fly tipping. It includes any enforcement or education. So if residents come out and are asking what they're doing, they will have a conversation around, please be mindful, this is unadopted. If, communities, the street wants to get together and help or wants to do a little bit more or want to take on ownership of the area, they'll have those education conversations, which is great. Any weed spraying to kind of cut back any push back any kind of weed growth, because a lot of these back streets are cobbled still, and so you do get quite a bit of weed growth in between. They'll do a little bit of that as well. So it's just a mixture of the sorts of neighbourhood services they do across. Now, as I say, it's only 2 individuals, but that's been working successfully. So what we are requesting, if I go, I'll go to the amount first. So we've got 2 operatives at grade C and D. 1 at grade F to have more of a sort of senior position so that they can do the enforcement side of things, and then another officer at grade C and D, and that enables sort of an operative to cover a lot of the groundwork. 2 of them working together with the vehicle should suffice for delivering this small service. That comes to a budget of around 100,000, including the caged vehicle. We'll continue to hire it for 12 months. Within the next 12 months, we hope that we'll be re-procuring our cage tippers within that period. So we would then add that vehicle to our fleet at that point in time. And then there's just a small amount of money for any planned events or any ad hoc work that we would need to do. So if I go up to the recommendations, the request is for the Executive Cabinet member to authorise the creation of 2.0 full-time equivalent permanent contract positions and authorise the service to continue hiring a cage tipper until a permanent resource can be produced and added to the fleet.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll open this up to questions, comments as well to members on the call, if there are any. If not, this service, sorry, Councillor Fairclough, you wish to
I
come
did.
in? Yes,
Thank
great.
you. Right, just a couple of questions. Do we have a list of unadopted roads available?
I don't have it with me, but I can certainly provide one for you. It's not necessarily in list format, but I can see what I can do to kind of draw those together. Can probably, yeah, let me have a look at what's available.
Anyway, it'll be fine. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about actual roads and not unadopted sort of areas. We often get pieces of land that nobody seems to know who they belong to. Is that included?
It's just really focused on roads, really. So if you talk about, there's some back alleys that we are adopted, but there are actually quite a few that are cobbled. They're in quite poor condition. So it has limited car use, usually just for those living on that street. So it's purely roads that we're looking at for this team.
And is it done on a response because people have complained or reported it, or are you? I sort of got the impression they were trolling around the area looking for things, but I take it it's responding to people ringing up and or lodging a complaint.
It's a bit of a mixture of the two, really, because obviously the two staff members working on the area, they're quite experienced. They know the areas. They've been working in the areas in other roles for quite a while. So it's a bit of a mixture of when something gets reported, they will say, oh, we're in that area next month. We'll make sure we prioritize it. But equally, they'll have a knowledge of the areas and they'll know where they tend to get a lot of the issues. So they will then tackle those next. And then thirdly, they've got a full list within that zone, north, south and west, of where the unadopted roads are. So they'll then try to, as best they can, make their way through whatever they can within that month until it then moves on to the next area. It's too many to guarantee that we would treat and manage all areas, but it's better than nothing, isn't it? Which is what we've had up until summer last year.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Well, the service has been working very well. If you remember in the budget of 2024, there was 100,000 put in, but it was only for 1 year. And this service was created last year, but only for 1 year. And then it was made permanent in the budget in this year in February 25. So that's why I'm making the decision today to make the two operatives, which we have permanent from the temporary role, and for the cage tipper to become a permanent resource until we can procure one to the fleet. So I'm happy to authorise those two things as recommended on the front of the report. And again, I want to thank Laurie as head of service for organising this service and for the work she's done. So thank you very much, Laurie. That's authorised, approved. We'll go on to item number 4, and it'll be back to Laurie again. This is the town centre cleansing and ground maintenance for new open spaces.
Great, thank you. So yes, we've been fortunate enough to have we've had a few developments over Bolton town centre and in Farnworth, which are great. So there's Elizabeth Park, there's Moor Lane housing development, Deansgate Gardens, Cheadle Square, all are fantastic spaces. And over the summer, we've had a lovely summer season with warm weather, and you can see residents were starting to enjoy those areas much more fruitfully, which is fantastic. We've been doing what we can as a service to keep on top of them. They were new developments. They were previously not used by members of the public. So we're trying to stretch our resources as best we can. We think we've got enough equipment and consumable resources available to maintain those areas. It's the people and staffing, being able to commit them to those town centre areas. So Farnworth and Bolton, because those are the new areas where there's public spaces. And obviously they are creating a little bit of a different buzz in those areas of the town centre. So we want to maintain that by keeping them looking as good as possible. So what we are requesting as part of this paper is to create 2 neighbourhood care operatives at grade C to D to enable us to maintain those resources in our town centres. We have got wider budget funding of 70,000 to enable us to do that. And there's about £2,000 or so left over that I'll find within the neighbourhood's budgets to enable us to bring in those positions and to keep those areas looking as best they can. That will include street sweeping as well as grounds maintenance, because my teams are multi-skilled across both those service areas. So it'll include the full breadth of neighbourhood services that's normally delivered to green space land. So as part of this request, the request is to authorise the Director of Place to create 2.0 full-time equivalent permanent positions added to the establishment in neighbourhoods delivery as detailed in the report to support newly created town centre developments.
Excellent.
Are there any questions?
Sure. Any questions for Laurie on this? No, I mean, all of this is part of our regeneration of the town centres. We can all be proud of the creation of Elizabeth Park behind me, Cheadle Square, that's another one, and the developments which are going on in Farnworth as well in the town centre there, and they have to be maintained, otherwise it's not worth doing. So we have to keep them maintained, looking spick and span. Elizabeth Park was shown off during the Ironman event this year. The Ironman event went through Elizabeth Park, so we should be very proud of these new public open spaces that are being created. So I'm very happy to authorise the director to create 2 permanent posts to be added to the service in neighbourhoods delivery as per the recommendation to me. So that's authorised and approved.
Super, thank you.
Great. So that's the all the items on the agenda. So we've come to the end of the meeting. So can I thank everybody for their attendance this evening? Everybody's had the say. Some of it was controversial. However, everybody is entitled to say what they wish. And I'll see everybody at the next Executive Cabinet Member meeting, which will be on the 6th of October. Thank you very much.